Los cuatro generales, los cuatro generales, los cuatro generales, mamita mía, que se han alzado, que se han alzado. The four insurgent generals, the four insurgent generals, the four insurgent generals, mamita mia, they tried to betray us, they tried to betray us. At Christmas holy evening, at Christmas holy evening, at Christmas holy evening, mamita mia, they'll all be hanging, they'll all be hanging.
Well, I'm here in Spain and I feel great. As soon as I came into training camp, I was met by so many familiar faces. My third day, and I feel like a veteran. I'm learning very fast. I shot a rifle for the first time in my life and made an excellent score. I've just received my helmet and ammunition belt, and you should see me. The uniforms we wear in the Mackenzie Papineau Battalion make me look just like an American doughboy in the World War. It's hard to imagine myself as a soldier. Sometimes I get the feeling that we're a bunch of Boy Scouts playing war.
Dear George, I'm terrifically busy nowadays in New York. Sometimes it seems to me that I work an 8-day week, 25 hours a day. Even the movies I go to are part of the routine. I saw Paul Muni in Emile Zola. It was really splendid. Of course, the Dreyfus affair was sort of watered down for the screen, but nevertheless, the impact of an awakening was terrific. I saw it at the Hollywood Get Your Ticket in Advance theater. Everyone was dressed up to kill, except poor me. I was dressed as though I was going on a hike, in an orange woolen dress, a brown corduroy jacket, and a brown baseball beret. The street photographer snapped me, and if it looks anything like me, I'll send it. The lobby of the theater was a series of balconies overlooking the main hall. I swear, as I looked down at all the swanky ladies and their escorts who were milling around below me, I felt like making one of my famous speeches from the balustrade. And I had a lot of fun imagining their expressions if I had. I'm sure only the vision of your commonsensical restraining hand kept me from it.
Madrid, you wondrous city, Madrid, you wondrous city, Madrid, you wondrous city, mamita mia, they wanted to take you, they wanted to take you. But you're courageous children, but you're courageous children, but you're courageous children, mamita mia, they did not disgrace you, they did not disgrace you.
George, do you realize we have a celebration coming soon? Our first anniversary, remember? So on January 15th, just imagine when you go to sleep, I say, push over, and I crawl in next to you, and you say, brr, you're cold, and I say, my, you're lovely and warm. Later, you're dying to go to sleep, but I won't let you because of the way I keep kissing the corner of your eye and rubbing my nose in your cheek and fiddling with your hair and murmuring silly things. And then you just turn around and go to sleep. And even then, I rub my face in your back and am so happy I fall asleep too.
Dear Muchachkala, at long last I got your letter. I had lamb stew, French fried potatoes, and your letter for my main dish. I had grapes, lemonade, and your letter for dessert. Well, there's hardly any need to say what difference your letter made. It's much easier now facing artillery and machine guns than it was before. I was really worried that I wouldn't hear from you before we went into action. Well, I'm happy, that's all. Very, very happy. You write about my new vitality and depth of experience? Well, my new vitality consists in infiltration, running and flopping towards the enemy, usually done on very thorny, rocky ground. And my depth of experience comes from digging foxholes. Yesterday, our entire section was transferred into a Spanish company. This was done to strengthen the Spanish group. This is just the chance that most of us have been waiting for. Now we are doing the job the International Brigade was really meant to do. That is to teach. We in the IB cannot win the war. The Spanish people are the ones to do that. Now I've got to learn Spanish, and I am learning it over a machine gun, over a rifle, at night to the music of a guitar and the dance of flamenco. Today we spent all morning teaching our Spanish comrades all about the machine gun, about the rifle. We helped them take their guns apart, clean them, and then in our own Spanish, explained how things worked. Last night they invited us to their bunks, holes in the ground filled with grass and covered with reeds. They played the guitar and danced and sang in the moonlight. You felt the centuries of culture. Tonight, they're coming over to our bunks, and we'll entertain them with more material things like coffee.
Viva la quince brigada, rumba la rumba la rumba la. Viva la quince brigada, rumba la rumba la rumba la. Que sea cubierta de gloria, a Emanuela, a Emanuela. Que sea cubierta de gloria, a Emanuela, a Emanuela. Wir seien in Schlacht gegangen, gegen Faschisten mit Heldenmut und mit Gesangen. Gegen Faschisten, ständig werden wir gedenken, gedenken Francos Mördereien. Die Faschisten gar nicht schenken, Spanier mehr befreien. Long live our 15th Brigade, boys, rumba la rumba la rumba la. Long live our 15th Brigade, boys, rumba la rumba la rumba la. For her name is grand and glorious, Emanuela, Emanuela. For her name is grand and glorious, Emanuela, Emanuela. Against the Moors we aim our rifle, rumba la rumba la rumba la. Against the Moors we aim our rifle, rumba la rumba la rumba la. Death to the hirelings of the fascists, Emanuela, Emanuela. Death to the hirelings of the fascists, Emanuela, Emanuela.
During the wait for the election returns, Bert Witt led the group in some new songs about Spain. You could see he really loved those songs, and so did everyone else.
We have only one desire, rumba la rumba la rumba la. We have only one desire, rumba la rumba la rumba la. Forever end the fascist terror, Emanuela, Emanuela. Forever end the fascist terror, Emanuela, Emanuela. At Jarama we are standing, rumba la rumba la rumba la. At Jarama we are standing, rumba la rumba la rumba la. And we have no planes above us, not a tank nor any cannons, Emanuela. And we have no planes above us, not a tank nor any cannons, Emanuela.
Yesterday, I lay awake trying to trace my understanding of war. As a young child, it was something dreadful that my parents used to talk about. I had nightmares about people who were called Huns, who used to come into people's houses and sharpen their axes in front of their eyes. They would cut off everybody's heads, including those of my sisters. It's true, they never got to me. I think the reason they used to spare me was I used to be beautiful in all my nightmares. That stage was soon over. War was something I read about and studied in high school for cause, effect, main events, heroes, and outstanding debts to the United States. Movies on the World War were exciting, but a little boring, except in the love interest sections. I became conscious of the political and economic nature of war 4 to 5 years ago. I shouted slogans and argued in anti-war conferences in college. I was honestly sincere in my fervent denunciation of war, even emotional, but still sort of abstract. Well, war isn't so abstract today. It presses down on us.
We are now in the front line service. In reserve position, not at the front. The camp is busy with cleaning new rifles, which we were just issued. I wasn't issued a rifle. Instead, I have the special honor of being a machine gunner for our section. And boy, how I love that gun. I got it last night, took it apart, and put it together a dozen times. This morning, I couldn't sleep and got up at dawn to look at the gun again. It's too heavy for one man, so another man and I operate it. It's the pride of our section. It's a light machine gun and has the firepower of 60 riflemen. So you see, I'm pretty important. At present, we are deciding on a name for the gun. But whatever it's called, I shall secretly name it after you, Baby Ruth. And you'd be surprised. It has many similarities to you. It's beautiful. A little awkward in spots, a little heavy, and oh, how I love to strip it. I treat it with such tenderness and actually sleep with it under my blanket. It's got to be protected. That gun means the life of the boys. Baby Ruth shoots straight from the shoulder and isn't going to miss.
A Spaniard who hails from Alcala, when angered would shout mucho mala. He tossed a grenade at a Moorish brigade and blew all those fascists to hella. Yippee-yi-yi-yi-yi, yippee-yi-yi-yi-yi. Oh, the Lincoln Battalion by cracky, a bunch of brave bozos, though wacky. They held down the line for months at a time against Franco, Il Duce's lackey. Yippee-yi-yi-yi-yi, yippee-yi-yi-yi-yi. 'Twas there on the plains of Brunetti, midst a hail of steel confetti, with our planes and our tanks we would smash Franco's ranks. Got sick on Italian spaghetti. Yippee-yi-yi-yi-yi, yippee-yi-yi-yi-yi. Oh, the Lincoln boys fought at Jarama. They made the fascisti cry mama. They were holding the line for months at a time, and for sport they would play with Obama. Yippee-yi-yi-yi-yi, yippee-yi-yi-yi-yi. A codger from old Albacete took on 16 goats on a betta. When asked how he felt, he just hitched up his belt and said, I can't tell just as yet. Yippee-yi-yi-yi-yi, yippee-yi-yi-yi-yi.
Give my regards to your machine gun. I wish I were a machine gun and could be with you in Spain. I swear I'd never jam or be awkward, even in spots. I keep myself spotlessly cleaned and oiled. Honestly, I'd be no trouble at all. And if we ever got in a really tough spot, I'd just start singing. That would scare the enemy away, all right, all right. Maybe sometimes, after the day's work was over, I'd sidle up to you like those French women you wrote about and say, Voulez-vous un joiement ce nuit?
It was yesterday that I first realized the actuality of the war. An order came through for a labor detail. 8 of us marched 2 kilometers in a pouring rain through 6 inches of mud and water to the next town. Then we were told we were going to Belchite. The truck drove us over mountain ridges and flat tableland. It was an open truck, and the rain lashed us in face and feet. We passed our former front-line trenches. They are narrow, zigzag, and deep with sandbags piled on the parapets, half flooded with water, foreshadowing what we'll have to face in the trenches this season. On both sides of the road is stretched barbed wire and heavy steel spikes at an angle inclined toward us. The spikes are arranged in groups of 4 and are used to stop tanks. In the open spaces between spikes are explosive mines. The approach to Belchite is beautiful. The road is on a high plateau which tapers off at Belchite. On both sides, fertile valleys surround the city. But Belchite itself, what a sight! The most miserable, depraving, horrible and horrifying, stinking, reeking, etc., sight I'd ever seen. War pictures cannot tell the story, ever. It was my first taste and smell of war. Of course, not direct. I merely witnessed the results in one little community, and it made me hate all the more the bastards who forced this destruction upon human beings. Not one house was left untouched. Holes in the walls and floors, debris piled 6 feet high, and in the debris, pieces of bricks, furniture, mortar, ammunition belts, pieces of human flesh and bone. In one courtyard, I tripped over the body of a fascist, partially decayed. He was wearing only one shoe, his other foot stockinged, and strangely I thought of, my son John went to bed with his stockings on, one shoe off and one shoe on. I didn't think of death or disgust. It blended too easily with the rest of the picture. The entire town was fortified, with sandbags in windows, barricades in the streets, and a maze of underground tunnels which led through every part of the city. Now we're waiting for the trucks. This time we're certain it's for the front. We hope.
Yesterday, Dave Engels came home. I came into the office and saw him standing in the doorway. I was speechless. All I could do was wring his hand. Then I found 2 letters from you. Dave talked into the small hours of the morning. Your letters, Dave's remarks, both very blunt, very matter-of-fact, very human. How can I tell you what I felt, what I learned? Darling, I see Spain. And you. Oh, I know it's not accurate, not complete. I guess I should say I feel Spain and you. Dave told us of Jarama, Brunetti, Quinto, Belchite, showing us the details using knives and plates and sandwiches. He described the time that Americans were caught in a barn, the time a group was forced to stay in a trench near the church for a full day in the hot sun without food or water, the taking of the church, the taking of the last stronghold, the last big house. What's it like to go over the top? I asked. Well, he said, the first and last 5 minutes are the hardest. The first 5 you think it would be a shame if they got you before you could do anything. And then you just go ahead and do what you're told. Then at the end, you can't help thinking it would be a shame if they got you after all you've gone through. You get pretty used to death. but you can't help feeling badly about the comrades who never got a chance to show what they can do. I read the news dispatches from Bilbao and my heart's near my mouth. But I've decided not to worry until there's something to worry about. Don't forget, you must write me all about everything.
Darling, I've been desperately trying to write for the past 2 days. The whole thing's too close, too real to represent in words. I'm writing this letter from a military hospital in Reus. But don't worry, darling, I'm not hit seriously. It's only a flesh wound and will heal in a couple of days. I got it while giving first aid to a pal of mine whom you don't know. He got it through the stomach and was suffering indescribable torture, lying right in the midst of the thickest fire. I rushed over, tore his clothes off, and started bandaging him when I felt a sharp sting through my left hand and right shoulder. No pain, just surprise. I'm darn glad I had my wits about me, because I mustered all my strength and all his strength to get both of us behind a little slope where the bullets whizzed over our heads. The first day we came up into the lines, we attacked, and the MacPaps made history that day. Everybody's talking about our fine work. We met with terrific resistance. The fascists were strongly entrenched. The MacPaps occupied the left flank. It was the flanking fire we went into which was so deadly. But you should have seen how we walked into it like veterans. None of us flinched, really, none of us. And when I lay in the field, after having crawled from comrade to comrade because my wound was not so serious and I was able to move about, giving all the first aid I could, I felt a strange elation at the way we had all acted. I had taken the test of fire and passed. And I'm going back as quickly as possible. I want you to know how much I love you, how much I loved you out there under the fire when every sing and pang of a bullet and cannon told me how much I loved you. Out there in the field, I was so calm and tried to sleep and thought of you and the movement, and they were one. I'm all skin and bones, yet the bullet finds plenty of flesh in my arm and shoulder to plow through without touching any vital spot. I have a right shoulder wound, and I'm writing with my right hand. You should see my suede jacket, all full of bullet holes, which never touched my body. Lucky, eh?
Si me quieres escribir, ya sabes mi paradero. Si me quieres escribir, ya sabes mi paradero. En el frente de Gandesa primera, línea de fuego. En el frente de Gandesa primera, línea de fuego. If you want to write to me, you know where you can always find me. If you want to write to me, you know where you can always find me. On the wide front of Gandesa, in the midst of every battle. On the wide front of Gandesa, in the midst of every battle. If you want to eat your fill, good food and not too many pesos. If you want to eat your fill, good food and not too many pesos. On that bloody battlefield stands an inn where you are welcome. On that bloody battlefield stands an inn where you are welcome. At the entrance of this inn, there waits a Moor by name Mohammed. At the entrance of this inn, there waits a Moor by name Mohammed. Warmly greets you, hurry, hurry, rare and spicy food awaits you. Who warmly greets you, hurry, hurry, rare and spicy food awaits you. The first dish which they serve is hot grenades in quick succession. The first dish which they serve is hot grenades in quick succession, followed by a burst of shrapnel makes a meal you'll all remember. Followed by a burst of shrapnel makes a meal you'll all remember.
The state convention opened with a flourish in a swanky hotel in Brooklyn. What a place! Elegant is the word for it. Long mirrors, gleaming walls, thick carpets, huge auditorium ballroom. There was the usual stuff, singing the Star-Spangled Banner, much taking of pictures. Then Mike read a letter we received that very morning signed by Solly, Hi, Joe, you, and the others. It was one of the finest letters any of us ever heard. The audience response was overwhelming. I just curled up and almost died myself. Then after the discussion period, roundtables, and giving my 10-minute report, well, by the end of the day, I was a wreck. And there was still the dance in the evening. Now you know I can't dance very well, and that I was tired. By some quirk, I danced all evening with people who seemed to delight in throwing their partners halfway across the floor and back, jerking, twisting, cavorting madly, and ending with Austrian dips. The last letter you wrote was written from the hospital, but I have the feeling you're back in service by now.
Ruth, I just got your letter reacting to my Blighty. I know just how you felt when you received the news. I think I know what it is that bothers you the most. You needn't worry about not sharing. You share in everything I do and feel. Old soldiers never die, never die, never die. Old soldiers never die, they simply fade away. Do you remember I said there was humor here? Remember All Quiet on the Western Front? The soldiers there had humor too, but it was bitter, a grim substitute for lack of interest and morale. It's as natural, well, as anything is natural. The boys tease each other, they kid the townspeople, and they make up songs.
There is an old cookhouse not far away, where we get sweet damn 3 times a day. Ham and eggs we never see, damn sugar in our tea, and we are gradually fading away. Old soldiers never die, never die, never die. Old soldiers never die, they just fade away. But there is cheese, cheese that brings you to your knees in the store, in the store. There is cheese, cheese that brings you to your knees in the quartermaster store. And there is tea, tea, but not for you and me in the store, in the store. There is tea, tea, but not for you and me in the quartermaster store. And there are rats, rats in bowler hats and spats in the store, in the store. There are rats, rats in bowler hats and spats in the quartermaster store. There's a chief who never brings us beef in the store, in the store. There's a chief who never brings us beef in the quartermaster store. There are beans, beans that make you fill your jeans in the store, in the store. There are beans, beans that make you fill your jeans in the quartermaster store.
I am enclosing a leaflet put out by the League. When I read the first paragraph, I burst out with a howl of laughter. My first reaction had been, we'll have to go naked, we girls will. Life is hardly worth the living. Johnny asked me what all the mirth was. I told him, whereupon he grew very stern and demanded that I recognize the seriousness of a boycott against Japan. If I thought a boycott against silk stockings was something to laugh about, I ought to read the latest copy of Life magazine explaining that no boycott movement could be successful unless women gave up wearing silk stockings, and he withdrew in a huff. When I finished wiping the tears of laughter from my eyes, I went in to see him. I explained I had no difficulty with him or with Life magazine. My outburst had been due to the sophomoric presentation. The same idea could have been put across without making the Young Communist League a laughingstock with slogans no one except hardened Bolsheviks could carry out. The leaflet could have started with why a boycott was necessary. Then every time you go into a store to buy silk stockings, silk underwear, silk scarves, ask your salesgirl, does the silk come from Japan? When she says yes, go to the store manager, complain and protest. Insist that he put out a more varied display of cotton, lisle, and rayon garments. In this way, a popular revolt against Japanese goods can be created, and you can feel instrumental in creating the latest and most truly up-to-date styles. Johnny's eyes twinkled as he said it meant a sacrifice for the men, too, and patted my shoulder and assured me he agreed with every word. The fuss I made involved me in an interesting assignment to draw up an information bulletin to be sent to all progressive organizations on what a boycott means in practical terms. All on the do you know? How much the U.S. imports from Japan? How much comes from silks? What that means in terms of ammunition? What substitutes can be used? What can be done about making the substitutes popular? It means some research, but mostly I intend to do a lot of window and counter shopping. Say, can't you just see me? Madam Ruth, style creator.
If you'd be in style, wear hose made of lisle. Don't buy anything Japanese. Lisle's 3 times as strong, wears 3 times as long. Don't buy anything Japanese. The fascist forces wage war in conspiracy. If we refuse to trade with them, we'll save democracy. That's why China begs, keep silk off your legs. Don't buy anything Japanese. Bei mir bist du schön, bei mir hast du Heim, bei mir bist du einer auf der Welt. Bei mir
Right now, hospital life is a brief, strange interlude. Ben Qasim is a beautiful sea resort with palm trees, white sand, and palatial villas that formerly belonged to the idle rich. As I write this, I face the Mediterranean, and straight out about 156 miles is Majorca, now fascist, where Mussolini has 200,000 Italian troops ready to land at Castellón, 10 miles south of here, in an attempt to drive 75 miles to Teruel. This would cut off Spain from France. This would mean World War. In spite of this, the place is an oasis of peace, quiet, and beauty. I find myself every now and then making love to a person 4,000 miles away. I walk along the beach and talk out loud to her as if she were present. I wait for her answers to my queries and, of course, know exactly what she will say. So you see, my dear, when I come home and talk to you with a faraway look in my eyes, you will understand. It's only from force of habit.
Something nice happened late Sunday afternoon. I scoured the neighborhood trying to find a copy of the Sunday Times. Finally, I located a dinky stand on the corner of Avenue A and 15th. 2 boys, about 17 years old, were in charge. There were 3 copies on display, but because of the day-long drizzle, they were wet and torn. "Don't you have a clean one?" I asked. "Nah, all sold out. You gotta take what you can get," said one of the boys. The other looked at me, then said menacingly, "Give it to her." "Oh, what's the matter? You cracked?" the first one said. But he reached into a box and picked out a solitary, dry newspaper. The second guy grinned till his teeth almost fell out. "Say, you mug," he said to his friend, "can't you see? She's wearing the Liberty Bell. Them kind can have anything we got." I was wearing the pin put out by the Friends of the Lincoln Battalion. Now, isn't that nice?
The armies of progress are marching, at the fascists they are hurled. A government of the people shall not perish from the world. Abraham Lincoln walks again. Abraham Lincoln marches. Abraham Lincoln lives again. Up tall he stands, and his great big hands hold a gun. No pasaran. Abraham Lincoln walks again. Abraham Lincoln marches. Abraham Lincoln lives again. For liberty and democracy, human rights, for these he fights. In the midst of the battle you will find him, and his fists break the fascist chain. With the Lincoln Battalion behind him, he fights for the freedom of Spain. Abraham Lincoln walks again. Abraham Lincoln marches. Abraham Lincoln lives again. His voice rings out to the echoing shout, "We shall pass, yes, we shall pass."
I was hurrying home very late last night along First Avenue. The street was pitch black and entirely deserted. I was more than a little frightened and tense. Suddenly I thought, gee, I wouldn't be a bit scared if I were walking with you, George. The strangest thing happened. Not only did I lose my silly fright, but suddenly the whole street came to life. Every store, every shop seemed to have a character of its own. I was suddenly delighted by the queer, almost unreal array of names on the store windows. Greek next to Polish, next to Finnish, next to German, next to English, next to Jewish. I realized what a vast and thickly populated city New York is. When you're caught in a subway jam or crawl along 14th Street on a Saturday afternoon shopping rush, why, you just take the mob for granted. But when at night you see empty block after block of a dingy street with 4 grocery stores, fruit, fish, meat markets, bakeries, all crowded together, when you reflect on how many thousands of times these blocks are duplicated in thousands of streets, why then you feel the millions of people of all ages and nationalities who, somewhere in the sleeping city, provide the basis for metropolitan life. Do you know what, George? You are a great comfort to me.
I was interrupted by a strange procession which filed by me. It was the funeral of the German comrade who died yesterday. Everything was done to save him. Blood donors were called for, and I volunteered. The doctor took one look at my cheekbones and said no. But what a contribution of blood he must have gotten. Spanish, American, French. The comrade who was dead was an anti-fascist under Hitler. He came to Spain to continue his bitter struggle against the fascists who tortured him and his family. He was wounded here 3 times, each time going back into the lines. You know, we get hardened out here to the thought of death and suffering, yet you can't help feeling that choking feeling that makes you want to cry and shout and curse.
Vor Madrid im Schützengraben, in der Stunde der Gefahr, mit den eisernen Brigaden, sein Herz voll Hass geladen, stand Hans der Kommissar, stand Hans der Kommissar. In Madrid's outlying trenches, in the hour of danger grim, with the International Shock Brigades, his heart with hatred all ablaze, stood Hans the Kommissar, stood Hans the Kommissar. Because he fought for freedom, he was forced to leave his home near the blood-stained Manzanares, where he led the fight to hold Madrid. Died Hans the Kommissar, died Hans the Kommissar. A bullet came a-flying from his fascist fatherland. The shot struck home, the aim was true, the rifle barrel well made too. A German army gun, a German army gun. With heart and hand I pledge you, while I load my gun again, you will never be forgotten, nor the enemy forgiven. Hans Beimler, our Kommissar, Hans Beimler, our Kommissar.
We don't cry here, but I had difficulty keeping my eyes dry. As the funeral passed each villa, every comrade who could possibly walk fell into line. Men on crutches, using canes, arms in slings, heads bandaged. And as I marched along, I couldn't help thinking of my comrades who had been killed beside me that day. We couldn't give them a funeral, and this became their funeral. At the cemetery, 3 languages were spoken: French, Spanish, and German, and I understood all 3. I felt such a spirit of internationalism as I never felt before. A volley of 3 shots by the assault guards, and the Internationale sung in Italian, French, German, Spanish, English, and Czech sealed the incident.
Debout les damnés de la terre, debout les forçats de la faim. La raison donne et son cratère, c'est l'éruption de la faim. Du passé faisant table rase, foule esclave debout, debout. Le monde va changer de base, nous ne sommes rien, soyons tout. C'est la lutte finale, groupe à nous et demain. L'international sera le genre humain. C'est la lutte finale, groupe à nous et demain. L'international sera le genre retardation. Arise, you wretched of the earth. For justice thunders condemnation, a better world's in birth. No more traditions chains shall bind us. Arise, ye slaves, no more in thrall. The earth shall rise on new foundations. We have been naught, we shall be all. 'Tis the final conflict. Let each stand in their place. The international working class shall be the human race. 'Tis the final conflict. Let each stand in their place. The international working class shall be the human race.